So now part 3 of the One Tigris Aire Mesh Harness. This thing is awesome. To this point, you have seen in part 1 the general features and overview, getting this fit for my dog. Part 2, a quality and just really awesome mountain test. And part 3 here, well, my final thoughts, and then just some general statements about using this locally around town. Now, if I had to sort of rewind things and just say, how was it to fit up to my dog? No problem. I love the construction. One thing that I do like, the way that the Aire Mesh harness is constructed. The front is fully contained. You'll notice it is fully strapped together. You don't have clips and buckles here, which on some of the other units, you do kind of need to clip around the front of the dog. But in this particular case, slip it over the dog's head. And then at that point, you're pretty much just taking the rest of the panel, routing it underneath the legs, and then clipping everything together. So from that perspective, just getting this fit up was very easy. Now, a couple of things to consider with the webbing. You do need to kind of take your time and figure out how to get the buckles all positioned and nice and cinched down the right way, and then tidied up. That's another thing. You end up with these little sort of Velcro keepers. That's awesome because you can keep everything nice and tidy, but you do need to spend just a little bit time getting the straps properly oriented, properly cinched up, and to the appropriate sort of tension around your dog. So you're not strangling your dog, but at the same time, it's sturdy and it stays in place. I did have a couple times where it was a little bit loose and tended to want to sort of roll around a little bit, but not a big deal. Getting this dialed in did take just a little bit of time. Again, not a big deal. From an overall construction perspective, everything held up very well. Now you'll notice this got extremely dirty. For the record, my dog loves going in the swamp, in the mud, and she absolutely did on my mountain adventure. But you do have the ability to clean this up fairly well. You can see at this point, everything fairly nicely cleaned up. Now I simply put this in the sink. I used a little bit of detergent and just sort of scrubbed this by hand, and it did come out actually pretty good. So this did clean up fairly well, all things considered. It's really nice having the pouches on the side for the basic essentials. I did find that, I'll put the poop bags in here. I'll put some treats. Very simple and basic things. Of course, you could use other pouches if you want. And the overall construction is sound. So that worked out extremely well. The other thing that really I love, the handle placement is fantastic. Everything working very well to help me manage the animal. Grab her, pull her up in strategic locations, and not just me, but I was kind of helping to scoot her up, and my son was up above in some of the sort of rocky areas and helping to get her up and over the obstacles. So that did work out extremely well. I do have some thoughts about the overall placement of the D-rings for the actual leash. The one behind the neck, no problem. The one on the chest, no problem. But I do have one suggestion about what One Tigris is doing. Now on the reverse, on the back, you can see there is a D-ring all the way at the back of it. And you'll notice that it's not in line with the webbing on the buckles. And what I did find was, unfortunately, it meant that the extra fabric on the back of the harness would kind of pull around it. I'm going to demonstrate this to you real quickly. So if this was on the animal, if the D-ring was in line with this webbing, it would kind of pull from this webbing and help you kind of manage a little bit better. But where this is on the end, you end up with a lot of loose material, and you'll see this just kind of pulls around and flops around. There's no rigidity. So I would take this D-ring and clip it back here, which at this point you can see is going to help you to manage a lot better because you're actually pulling from that webbing and helping to control the animal. And I don't know about you, but with my dog, I'm starting to learn very subtle movements with my actual leash that lead to her sensing that in the motion. So literally as little as getting her to come with me and pulling in just some very simple directions, she can feel that. And, well, when it's on her back, that's not really doing much. If it was here, you'd actually be kind of pulling from that webbing. So in my opinion, just a little bit of a miss in terms of the location of that D-ring. I think if it was in line with the rest of the webbing, it would have worked a little bit better, but not a big deal. It did get the leash nice and out of the way. So going uphill or downhill in times where I needed that leash clearance, that worked out very well. Now you'll notice on the back here, I did start to transition into using this in the urban environment, not just sort of on the trails, but really more in the urban environment. Now, I do have to admit, I have not yet gone out late at night or in a situation where I really needed the full reflectivity. That is something that I will continue to test and see the overall effectiveness. But what I can tell you is this is nice and bright, easy to see with that reflective nature. That is nice, and also in the leash, so that does work out where you end up with that nice reflective panel. But more so, I have the ability to attach little things like lights. So if you want to put a beacon or you want to put some like flashing light or something like that, it can really aid in the overall visibility. And depending on what you're trying to do, that might work out extremely well. So a simple little light like this is very nice, and it adds to the overall visibility while you're out there. And there's a number of different places where you could potentially put that. So this kind of has been living on here for that urban environment, which is really cool. And so all in all, I do have to say that was very successful. I like the overall construction. I like the overall features. The durability seems to be there. The overall general comfort seemingly for my animal, of course I can't speak to that, but she seemed to be just fine. The breathability, the fact that this dried out quickly, my ability to manage little things while I'm on the trail. These harnesses are awesome. So if you're an active person, if you go into areas where you really need to manage your animal, these do work out very well. Nicely made, nicely stitched, great features, and all things considered, an excellent system from One Tigris. And so again, that's the Aire Mesh Harness. Thank you for following along. I hope you enjoyed that little mini series to the people at One Tigris. Thank you very much for providing this for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel's growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there. So if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.